Hey, welcome back. I'm Dr. Stephanie Dean, and today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm pretty excited. So this is episode 14, I think. And in this episode, I actually went to Instagram and I asked our audience to give me some questions. What questions do you have that I can answer about navigating technology, enhancing your communication skills? So I've got a good number of questions. I picked about 10 from the questions that were submitted, and I'm here to answer them. So I'm really excited to do this different type of format. I'm going to throw this in there every once in a while. So let's get started. Let's see what happens. Excuse my voice today. I am coming off a pretty gnarly cold. So if I sound like I have swallowed a frog, this is why. I have not swallowed a frog. I just have a cold. Okay, so let's get started with your questions. The first question I have is, how do I overcome tech overwhelm when starting to use new tools? That is a great question. Okay, tech overwhelm is a common challenge. And the first step to acknowledging that is that you're not alone, right? You are not alone in feeling that way. When I first started using Zoom, for example, when we were online and everything locked down, there was so much to learn so quickly because even though I had taught about digital technology for years and years and years, this was a new platform. We were using it for a new reason. There was a lot of pressure in how we used it. Even though there was a lot of grace, just given that everybody was learning all of this at the same time, there was still a lot of pressure. So that is what I want to comment about this is, one, give yourself some grace. New technology, and especially if you have a new tech stack, say you've come to a new place and they're using tools either differently than the way you normally use them, or they're just using a different stack of tools together that you're not super familiar with, that's okay. Always be curious, right? Make sure that you just never stop learning. And it's okay to give yourself some grace. You will never be perfect. I will never be perfect. Nobody is ever going to be perfect. That is so cool. That is what makes living and figuring things out and going on to the next challenge and having challenges so freaking awesome. None of us are perfect. Give yourself some grace. Stay curious. Just keep figuring things out. And great ways to do that is to find podcasts like this one. Go to YouTube. There's so much on YouTube. It is the second most searched website on the internet right now. How-to videos are everywhere on YouTube. Make sure you look at things like when it was uploaded, because you may have a tool that has updated a lot in the last 2 years. And if you're watching a 4-year-old video, it may not be accurate anymore. Things may have updated. So just make sure you stay on top of things like the tool may be updated, the video may be old, but stay curious, give yourself some grace. Tech overwhelm can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to stay that way. Everything's overwhelming the first time you do it, right? You'll get there. Just give yourself some grace. Okay. Question number 2. What essential tools should I consider for professional communication? That is also a fantastic question. So choosing the right tools really depends on your specific goals, right? Let me recommend a few. I've got my notes down here, so pardon me if I keep looking down here for those of you that are on video. Let me recommend a few that are genuinely helpful. Zoom. Zoom is a great one, right? It's easy. There's a low barrier to entry. Everybody's using it. They actually are integrating a lot of cool features continuously. They're continuously updating it. There's a lot of really great AI features in it now. There's great note-taking. There's the ability to have webinars that's really useful. It's super user-friendly. It's super widely accepted. Google Meet also has a lot of really great features in it that I think it flies kind of under the radar. On a side note, I kind of wonder if Google has done that to themselves, because while I love Google products and I use Google products, they also tend to create a really awesome product and then kill it, a few years later. I'm still salty over Google Reader. Google Reader used to be an RSS reader. Feedly is a really good one that still exists. But what you did is it brought in all of the feeds from the different places that you would read. So if you're a blogger, for example, you could bring all your blogs in. And that's really the way it started, using RSS feeds, which stands for really simple syndication. But you would bring all of that into one place, and it didn't bring in any of the design to it. It was just the content. So that was great. It was like one newspaper for all the places that you would go online and read. I loved Google Reader. They killed it. Still salty. But yeah, long tangent aside, Zoom is great. Google Meet is great. So platforms for meetings and webinars, super useful. So that's one essential tool I would say is essential to learn as a communication professional or a professional looking at communication tools. Slack is a great one. It's great for team communication, for project management. A lot of organizations are actually going to Teams because it integrates in their Microsoft system really well. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Teams. There's a lot of good things about it. I think Slack tends to be more geared towards engineering, tech. Teams tends to be geared more towards, I don't know, communication, operations, the not as technical side of things. So you tend to get that separation between the two platforms, but honestly, they pretty much do the same thing. You can organize in groups. You can collaborate together. There's a really good security features with both of them. So they pretty much do the same thing. It's just which one you're going to adopt for wherever you are and who's communicating on them. Trello and Asana are great. They're perfect for organizing tasks, for collaboration. Notion is the big one right now. I'm actually not a big fan of Notion. I know that's an unpopular opinion. I just don't find it that useful, and I find the price point kind of high for the use that it has. Maybe I need to look into it more. But honestly, Trello, Asana, good old notebook or notes in your iPad or iPhone is a great way to just, simple checklist. So any kind of task organization is a great one to learn, is a great tool. It's an essential tool. And then just learning the basics of social media platforms. As much as we like to roll our eyes at social media, knowing your social media platform, knowing how to get your message out on your social media platform, super important. For example, Instagram has a lot of interesting features on it where if you have reels and carousels, they tend to go outside of the group that you're talking to, your followers. But if you do posts and stories, that really engages the followers that you already have. Little things like that can make a huge difference. For example, if you're trying to grow your voice on Instagram and you're creating post after post after post and you're like, I don't understand why I'm not growing, it's because you're creating a post and not a reel or not a carousel. A carousel is just a post with more than one picture in it, right? Just add more pictures, suddenly you've got a carousel. Suddenly Instagram is showing that outside of your specific follower group. So looking at things like that, going to YouTube, finding those how-to videos, that will help you learn these essential tools. So the essential tools I consider essential for professional communication would be a communication tool like Zoom, a communication tool like Slack to help you kind of collaborate with others, a way for you to keep track of what you're doing. So if you're not using a paper calendar, use a digital calendar or a task organizer like Trello or Asana, and then know your social media platforms. Know how to pick one good one, and then let your voice be heard on that one and learn how to really use it well on that platform. You don't have to pick all of them. That is overwhelming. That gets overwhelming really fast. So pick one, get good at that one, add another one if you want to, but try to find a way to get your voice and share your knowledge outside of just your tiny little bubble too. Share with us. We want to know what you know. Okay, question 3. How can I build confidence in using these tools? Well, building confidence with technology is crucial, right? One of the best ways to do this is to, I hate to say it, to do it, practice, right? I used to tell this to my students all the time. They would come in and do a speech, for example, on something, or give a talk on something. And it was so freaking obvious that this was the first time these words had ever come out of their mouth. They had notes, they had a note card, they had an outline, they had a Notion file, but they had not actually produced full sentences out of their mouth about this thing. Practice it, practice it, practice it, practice, practice, practice. I know this is my professor coming out, but if you want to build confidence in using your tools, you need to learn to use them well, and you need to practice them often. So, for example, if you're giving a webinar to your colleagues and you are showing this great new cool thing and you have researched this great new cool thing for 3 months, that is awesome. I am so proud of you. But if you don't know the tools to show how you have researched this thing and the results of the thing you have researched, how are they going to know? If a tree falls in the forest and you don't hear it, how are they going to know? How are they going to know you did it? Practice. Make sure that when you get in there, your tech stack works for you and you're not working against it. Make sure you know how to turn on the webinar. Make sure you ask people questions to engage with you in the webinar. Make sure that you're using the tools well, and that only comes through practice. Do it with your, have your dog as your audience member the first time. Get on there, just keep practicing until you feel comfortable to do it in front of the people that you need to do this in front of and you need to impress. So practice. My answer to that, how can I build confidence? Practice. Question number 4. How do you have an authentic voice in communicating online? I think this is more important now than it ever been before, because we are in a time of AI, and don't get me wrong, I think AI is the bee's knees. I really like it. I think it's got a lot of great uses. I think it's got some scary uses too, but for the most part, I think it is a tool that is fairly neutral, and it's the way that we use the tool that determines what we do with it. That being said, there is a bit of a backlash against the polishedness of AI. So if I sit here, and I did it in the beginning because I was very nervous. I had a teleprompter script. I was reading my script. I sounded like a robot reading my script. And I had to just throw out most of that footage because it was slightly unusable. And it made me look like AI generated, right? It made me seem stilted and inauthentic, and that people don't like it. People don't like it. And it's not fun to do both. So to be authentic online, find people that you admire and you like what they do. Don't go straight out copying. We don't plagiarize here, but you do want to see what works for them, mimic some of that, see if that's part of your style, and then be authentically you. There's nobody else that has your baggage, your life experiences, your relationships, that weird mixture. And I know I'm sounding a little woo-woo here, but that weird mixture that makes you, nobody else has that. Not a single person, not even your twin sister, brother, whatever, has that. You are the only one with your unique experiences, knowledge, baggage, emotional baggage that walks behind you on a leash, all of that stuff, that's just you. So if you want to be authentic, you need to bring that self to the game. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Never will be. Never going to be perfect. Don't worry what people think. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And you know what? That's okay. Not everyone needs to drink the tea. It's okay to be unpolished. It's okay to not be perfect. It is not okay not to be yourself. So how do you stay authentic online? Be you. Just be you. That doesn't mean don't do a good job. Do a good job. Do your homework. But be you. Okay, number 5, what is the best way to engage with your audience using technology? Okay, I've got to stop saying okay so much. I realize that I do it a lot. When I go back and edit these podcasts, I feel like I say okay 10 gamillion times. I'm going to have to work on that. So, intentionality. If you want to engage with your audience, you need to be intentional about it. You need to be present. You need to be responsive. You need to interact with comments. And there's ways to automate that too. You don't have to answer every comment, but there are ways when people ask you questions or need a resource. If you're offering them a resource, there are some great ways to automate that. I'm about to do a YouTube video on how to do that with MiniChat, because MiniChat is rocking my socks right now. There are ways to do this. You need to do it intentionally. You need to interact and engage authentically. Again, you can use polls. You can use questions in your social media posts. You need to encourage it. So this reminds me of one of the universities that I went and spoke at. I did a guest lecture there, and I was warned before I went in, don't take offense if they don't respond or answer, or if you ask them a question, they don't respond. They just don't. And I didn't take that as a challenge, but I was like, well, I'm not going to not ask them questions. That's part of my teaching style. I want to talk to people. And if they don't answer me, I tend to call them by name, whether they like it or not. So I would say engage with them. Call them out by name. Say, hey, person in the front row, or if you're on Zoom, because all of this is about digital media, hey, person in the blue shirt with the cat on their lap, let me ask you a question. What do you think about black cats? You've got one on your lap. How do you like? I mean, that's not going to be your question because I'm sure that's not your topic you're talking about. But my point is engage with people. Actually care about what they're doing and what they're thinking. Be an active listener. When you're having a Zoom meeting or a face-to-face meeting, actively listen to them. Care about what they say. So when you're looking at social media online and you are trying to engage people through social media, there's a couple things you need to think about. One, what medium are you using? Because engagement and getting more engagement on different media is done differently. For example, if we go back to the Instagram example I just used a minute ago, you're not going to get as much engagement through Reels as you would in your followers, in your actual followers. So if you're trying to grow, you're going to use Reels and you're going to use carousels. If you're trying to engage and get some participation, you're going to ask polls in your stories. You're going to ask for questions like I did for this episode. So you want to start that conversation, talk with people. If you're on YouTube, kind of a similar thing. You're not going to ask a poll necessarily because you can't do that as easily on YouTube, but you want to start with a question. You want to ask people. You want to ask them to engage in the comments. I'm sure you've seen this call to action. They call it a CTA, a call to action, to ring the bell or subscribe. People do that usually in the beginning and the end of their videos. So think about what medium you're on, how people can actually engage with that medium, and then ask them to do these things and ask them more than once. One thing I realized while doing this podcast, I was always doing my call to action at the very end of the podcast. Maybe people didn't get to the end. Maybe they got busy. Maybe that was a boring episode. It had no value for them. Maybe they didn't make it all the way there. So doing a call to action in the beginning and the end can be a great way to get people more engaged. So you have to see what your audience is reacting to, what medium you're on, and just keep doing it because people want to know that you authentically want to engage with them and they will keep coming back and engaging with you if they feel like it's a real connection. So yeah, I think that's the best way to engage with people. What are some common mistakes? This is number 6. What are some common mistakes people make with technology in communication? Okay, this could go a bunch of different ways. If I'm looking at professionals or if I'm looking at entrepreneurs, I feel like it kind of goes in 2 different directions here. So most professionals, I would say, fall into common traps when using technology. Overloading on tools, so trying to use every available platform. You tend to get confused and you tend to burn out, right? It's crucial to find what's going to work for you and what you want to do with it. So with every platform that you're using, what is your point of using it? Why are you using it? For example, if you are a web developer and your corporation is using both Teams and Slack, but the people that you are collaborating with only use Slack, they're not using Teams, you're probably going to use Slack more, right? You don't need to go into every little bit of Teams if that's not where your people are and not what they're using. If you are on the DevOps side and you're definitely using Teams and you're using to collaborate, you probably want to get pretty good at that one and learn how to use it. Maybe not care so much about Slack. So look to see where your people are, what they're doing with it, and why you're using the tool that you're using. I'll go back to my example with Notion. I'm not a huge fan. I feel like I get as much value from the way that I organize my tasks now than learning a new platform that's not really giving me a whole lot more and at a much higher price point. So I'm not saying don't go look and see if it's a really great option. It may rock your socks. ManyChat right now is rocking my socks. But it doesn't mean you have to use it. Just because it's the new cool fun thing doesn't mean that it's going to be new cool fun for you. It may just lead to frustration and burnout. So weigh the shiny, shiny with how useful it is for you. That is one common mistake I would say, is people just running to the next shiny, shiny. Forgetting about engagement, really. So sometimes we get so focused on the technical side of things, we forget to engage our audience. So remember that communication is a two-way street, right? We want to have a conversation. That is kind of the whole point of media, is to have that either one-to-many or many-to-many conversation. So if you want to have a conversation with people and you're not using this as a billboard, if you're using it as a billboard, cool, you do you, boo. But if you're using it as a way to communicate with other people, then you need to communicate with other people. You need to have that conversation. Don't just talk to a wall, even though it's tempting because you are talking, right now I'm talking to a phone. If you are talking to a phone on a light stand, it is tempting to forget that you're having a conversation with someone else. But you are, even if it's on social media. So engage with them, ask them questions, and keep asking them questions. They may not be there now, but they may be there 3 months from now, and that media, that piece of content that you just created will also be there 3 months from now. Give them a way to engage with that, even if they're not there yet. Prepare for that engagement. Engage now. The people will come. Field of dreams. Okay. How do you choose the right platform for your audience? This is a biggie, I would say. This is a big deal one. You need to go where your people are, where the people that you are trying to communicate with, that is where you need to be. For example, I work with a lot of professionals and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. Those are my main two groups of people that I work with currently. The professionals, they're on LinkedIn. That is where I communicate with my professional people. And surprisingly on Medium. I think there's a big overlap between Medium, which is like a longer form writing platform, and LinkedIn. But those are the two areas that I tend to find my business professionals engaging with me most. Now, entrepreneurs are not on LinkedIn as much unless they're also looking for other B2B business people. If you are looking to work with an entrepreneur and not with a business, I'm going to find them more on Instagram and YouTube, surprisingly on YouTube. So those are the two places those two groups hang out at. Where are your groups hanging out? Are you someone that's doing a lot of crafting? Are you teaching people how to craft or how to do art or how to do something like that? Your people are probably going to be on a very visual medium. So that could be Instagram, TikTok, YouTube for like tutorials, but also Pinterest. Pinterest is one you do not want to, sleep on. So you need to ask yourself, who are you trying to engage with? And where are those people already engaging? It is, it's actually my old username handle in most of my places. It's a theory of communication called Cute Cat Theory. And that is, your people are where they are already sharing pictures of their cute cats, right? If your people are doing crafts and they're sharing pictures of their cute crafty cats, that's going to more likely be on Pinterest, maybe longer form on YouTube, short form on Instagram and TikTok. That's more than likely where those people are going to be. If your people are sharing their version of corporate cute cats, they're probably going to be on LinkedIn. So you need to figure out where your people are, what they like to do, where they like to hang out online, and that's where you're going to go. So getting back to the question, number 7 here is, how do I choose the right platform for my audience? Find out where the cute cats are. Where are your people? Where are they hanging out? And where are they already sharing this information? Because building a platform for them to try to come to is so much harder than you going to where they are. Now, having said that, when I say go to where they are, that does not mean go to where they are, throw up your own billboard and just start selling them in the face. That will never work. Think about how that feels if you get cold called and they're trying to sell you things and you're just adding no value and you're just shoving sales down someone's throat. That does not feel good. We do not like that. That is not what I'm saying. When I say go to these places and find your people there, I mean authentically engage in conversations with them, enjoy having these conversations, add value, receive value, and if you can help someone, that is doing that. You're not selling them. You're giving them a solution to a problem that they have. You're helping them with a pain point that they have. It just makes life so much easier for everybody, and it's authentic and it's real, and people want to work with you in that case. They do not want to work with someone who shoves a billboard on their land and says, hey, I love your cat, buy my thing. Not going to work. So if you want to engage with people, do it authentically, find where they are and give them value. Don't just go in there and shove it down their throat. Okay, question number 8. How can I make online meetings more engaging? I just did a webinar on this, so you might be interested in that. You want to do things like talk to them. I know it seems so weird because you are theoretically talking to a camera, but there are people on the other side of that camera in an online meeting. Use interactive features. Use polls and breakout rooms. Breakout rooms actually are surprisingly popular. Encourage participation. Do fun little games. I attended one meeting where we started with a scavenger hunt, which seems weird. We were in offices, like actual offices, but in that office, the person who organized it had kind of an office-themed scavenger hunt, and it actually broke the ice in a way that wasn't like, tell me one thing that you hated as a child, like, you know, those horrible, boring icebreakers that you had to do at the first day of class. I can say that because I had to do a lot of those for students. They are awful. We all hated them. So I want you to engage with people, find ways to make it fun. Don't make it super cringy. Encourage participation. Set a clear agenda. Let me give you another pro tip from the dean of my former university, who I just thought was wonderful. And he said that if a meeting lasted over 40 minutes, it was ridiculous and he just wouldn't do it. Yes, right? Yes. We are so ridiculously used to meetings that go on and on and on. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be better. So set that clear agenda, make sure everyone knows what to expect. Keep the meeting focused. That doesn't mean you can't have fun. You can still have fun, but keep that meeting focused. Don't make it last all day long and get through it. And when you're through with it, you can either have a little social time or you can move on and do other things with your life. So make meetings more engaging by not boring the pants off people. Use interactive features, set clear agendas that you stick to, and encourage participation. Don't make them just sit there and, glassy-eyed stare at the screen. Actually encourage feedback, talk with me, polls, put something in the chat, ask specific questions in the chat as you're going along. That is how I try to make mine more engaging when I have them. So question number 9, what are some strategies for overcoming fear of technology? That is a thing, and that is okay. It is okay to be fearful of some technologies. Start small, right? Again, a lot of fear comes from unknown and overwhelm. You don't have to take on everything at the same time. You don't. You can start small, and that is okay. Get used to that thing and then move on to the next. And then also learn about it. Right? A lot of fear comes from the unknown. No, learn about it. If you are scared of TikTok because you read this thing about it, granted, that was me. I hated TikTok for a long time because I had read some horrible things about security issues with TikTok. I went and read about it and learned more about it. I still have my feelings about it, but knowing, I don't want to say it's half the battle. I feel like I've spoken in so many cliches on this episode, but knowing will help you mitigate fear. So don't be afraid to learn about it. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be all at once. Bite-sized portions, take your time, you'll figure it out. And reframe your mindset, right? Part of what I just said is reframing that mindset. Instead of viewing technology as a hurdle, look at it as an opportunity to grow and to use something, or to use something that will, once you've gone over that threshold of learning, will make your life a lot easier. That is the whole point of technology, right? It's supposed to make our life easier. I saw a great quote the other day that said something like, I don't want AI to create all of my writing and art for me. I want it to do the dishes and the laundry so I can write and create art. And I thought, oh, that's great, right? Technology is supposed to work for us. It's supposed to do those menial tasks that we kind of hate so we can create and think. And I firmly believe that a lot of the opportunities in the future are going to be knowledge management type of opportunities where we have to use technology in a way that shows that we can think critically around it versus using it to think for us. Using it to do a thing for us, I feel, is like that beginner stage of technology. Like right now, AI writes. it writes for us or it creates art for us. But it's so often, obviously, AI output. A lot of times, you still have to ask it the right questions. You know that you need to know the right prompts. You need to know how to think critically about what output it's given you, because it still hallucinates a lot. By that, what I mean by that, if you don't know, is when you say that AI hallucinates, it means it just makes stuff up. It may. There was something about a lawyer who used AI to write a brief, and the AI cited things that just weren't true. You don't do that. Don't plagiarize with AI. Not hard to go and check your sources, check the truth claims, think critically. These are, as the amazing, phenomenal Howard Rheingold would say, these are the 21st century literacies that we have to know. We have to think critically. And these tools make it both harder and easier, right? It's harder and easier. We've got to learn these skills, but it's supposed to make our life easier once we've learned them. So that is how I would start to overcome that fear of technology. So how can I measure? This is the last question. Thank you for sticking with me. This will be our longest episode by like 10 minutes. It's going to be awesome. How can I measure the effectiveness of my communication using technology? Okay, so we want to get better, right? We always want to get better. To measure your effectiveness, you need to look at the numbers. And I say this with complete respect for numbers and understanding of, I like words more than numbers myself, so I get it if you don't want to look at the numbers, but you need to at least look at how the numbers are trending. Even if you do not understand every detail of the analytics that you're looking at, you need to see the trends and understand the trends. So you need to look at things like rates of engagement. That would be things like how many likes and shares and comments, how many attendees you have in a meeting. Higher engagement usually, just remember, in the beginning, you're not going to get much engagement because in the beginning you are kind of talking to an empty room, but that will change. And you need to make sure that when your perpetual media that will be there, when that has changed, still has that opportunity for engagement. So higher engagement usually indicates a more effective communication. So if you're 6 months down the road and you've got, 10K plus followers and nobody's engaging, then you really need to think about how you're messaging. In that case, you're probably not messaging well. People aren't following you. They don't care what you have to say because you're not saying it well. But in the beginning, if you don't have many followers, you're not going to have much engagement because they're just not there yet. Okay. Feedback, solicit feedback. Don't be afraid of that. Find out what your audience thinks, right? What do they think about your content? Have some surveys. Do a little giveaway for a survey to, get some good content. Not good content, good feedback, because that feedback is kind of worth gold, right? Even if it's telling you something you don't necessarily want to hear, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, you're communicating for a purpose. And if that purpose isn't being met, are you even communicating, right? Or are you talking to the wind? So get feedback, and then track your growth. Track your growth in skills. Track your growth in your comfort level with the technology. Reflect on that progress regularly. So definitely look at your numbers. If you don't know how to do this, again, I just said put a call to action in the beginning, middle, and end. I didn't say middle, but the beginning and the end. I'm doing it at the end. Whoops. But if you don't know how to track these things, I do have a freebie. It's a little Google sheet that has different metrics that you can track for different media. It will help you figure out what you need to track. If you are an entrepreneur using media to communicate with other people and you want to see how it's going for you, it will help you track your media engagement. The numbers of people that are following you, subscribers, what have you, the rate of engagement, the number of emails and click-through rate, all of these things. It is on this Google Sheets. I will share it with you. The link will be in the show notes because I know it's going to be a little weird to spell in the beginning, but it's corvididesign.com/tracker. corvididesign.com/tracker, TRACKER. The link is also in the show notes. But if you go there, you can see Google Sheets completely free for you, and it will help you track these things. You'll know what to track, how often to track it, and it will actually let you make a copy of the sheet and track it for yourself. And nobody else can see that sheet but you, because you've made a copy of it. So if you want to use that, it's a great resource, corvididesign.com/tracker. It's there for you. It's free. I use it myself. I created it for myself, and I thought, it's a good thing to share. So it is there for you and for your tracking pleasure. Thank you for listening. I know this podcast episode was a bit of a doozy. It was a bit of a long one, but I love that you guys stuck around. If you're still here, I imagine you are if you're listening to my voice right now. So thank you so much for making it to the end. I love doing this. I love communicating with you, and I'm so excited that you are communicating with me as well. I love that you guys actually sent me some questions. They were so much fun to answer. I grouped them up, so if you didn't hear your exact question, I grouped them in kind of into categories, and that's how I got the 10. So let me know if you guys have more questions. Always hit me up. Actually, so I just switched to Buzzsprout for podcasting. You can text me. What? You can text me on this episode. So if you look in there, you can actually send me a text if you have a question or you want to know how to work with me. I have coaching if you want to do that. So if you want to know more how to work with me, if you just have a random question, the professor in me will totally come out and try to answer it for you. Text me. Okay, cool. Have a great day. Have a great week. And I will see you guys next Thursday. Bye, everybody.